Hello and welcome. This is Talk TV. I'm Daisy McAndrew, and tonight we're bringing you some breaking news from Buckingham Palace. It has been confirmed that King Charles has been diagnosed with cancer. That news just out in the last few seconds. I'm joined now by our royal editor, Sarah Hewson. Sarah, obviously a lot of people have been concerned about Charles's health, but thought it was just a run-of-the-mill prostate problem.
Yes, and this has been detected during that treatment that the King underwent in the last 10 days for benign prostate enlargement. And he has a form of cancer, we're told by Buckingham Palace. It is not prostate cancer, but we don't know what sort of cancer it is. They're not confirming that at the moment. Let me just read to you the statement we've had from Buckingham Palace in the last minute or so. During the King's recent hospital procedure for benign prostate enlargement, a separate issue of concern was noted. They say subsequent diagnostic tests have identified a form of cancer. His Majesty has today commenced a schedule of regular treatments, during which time he's been advised by doctors to postpone public-facing duties. Throughout this period, His Majesty will continue to undertake state business and official paperwork as usual. The King is grateful to his medical team for their swift intervention, which was made possible thanks to his recent hospital procedure. I think the hope from that is that whatever this is, it has been caught early. He remains wholly positive about his treatment and looks forward to returning to full public duty as soon as possible. And he says he's chosen to share his diagnosis to prevent speculation and in the hope it may assist public understanding for all those around the world who are affected by cancer.
So the first of many questions, Sarah, but obviously many people will have assumed if a cancer was found during a routine prostate procedure, that the cancer would be prostate cancer. We don't believe that's the case.
It is not prostate cancer. Yeah. We are told it is not prostate cancer. An area of concern noted during the procedure, diagnostic tests then carried out, and we believe that today he received the results of those tests. He was in Sandringham. We saw him yesterday attending church,
yes.
St Mary Magdalene Church in Sandringham with his wife, Queen Camilla, but he has now today returned from Sandringham to London, where he's going to commence treatment as an outpatient. Now, we don't have any specifics on the nature of that treatment, but an important line in that statement that state business and official paperwork will carry on as usual. So he will continue to carry out his constitutional duties, but he has been told to postpone public-facing duties, presumably because, as anyone who has been through cancer treatment or knows, anyone who has, when you are undergoing treatment, you are immunocompromised.
And obviously what you're referencing there is we assume, and at this point we have literally just got that statement to go on, but we assume if he's having treatment for a cancer as an outpatient, it is either some sort of chemotherapy
or radiotherapy.
Or radiotherapy, which obviously can be very, very trying, can be very debilitating. But as you said, they are keen to say there's no suggestion that he's not going to be able to continue his constitutional issues. And when we talk about those constitutional duties, we're talking about the red boxes. We're talking about papers sent from Downing Street, from government to the King, bits of paper that he's got to sign, appointments.
Any bills that need to be passed through Parliament have to go to the King, for example. So we're not going to see him out and about for some time. We were wondering when he was going to be back on public duties, weren't we? We were told he was going to be having about a month off following his procedure. It now seems that that will be longer.
Yeah.
And the timing of this is really difficult, Daisy, isn't it? Because the Princess of Wales is also recuperating from her surgery. She's not going to be back on duty until at least April. The Prince of Wales was due to be taking time off to help her in her recovery at home and help out with the children. We did get notification today that he was going to be back to work on Wednesday. I wonder if this news from the King might have been a catalyst for him coming back to work sooner.
Sure. And, you know, there he is almost stuck between a rock and a hard place, because Prince of Wales, William, made it very, very clear that he wanted to be, as some would say, a thoroughly modern partner and husband, and he wanted to put, his royal duties to one side and really concentrate on his family duties to his 3 young children and Kate, while she was going through this very long recuperation from still an unknown abdominal operation that she had those couple of weeks ago. But now we know that actually William, as the next in line to the throne, really he is going to have to pick up a lot of those duties. Yes, not the constitutional duties, not the signing of bills, but certainly a lot of those outward-facing duties that we've seen Camilla doing so much of in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and my understanding is that Camilla will play a dual role now, because she's obviously going to want to support her husband as he goes through his treatment, but she's also very aware of her public-facing role, and we've seen that over the past few weeks, haven't we? That Camilla's been holding the royal fort,
yes,
effectively, and I think it's likely that that will continue while she's at her husband's side. When he needs her, she will also be out and about and continuing to be visible.
And it's interesting that the King was very open about his prostate issues. And you can understand, that was a benign, in both senses of the word, problem that he had, medical problem. But he clearly wanted to be open about it, as he said, to help raise awareness, to get men to check themselves. And he was, I think, seemed from the statements, very proud of the impact he had had on this. This statement, though, is much less detailed. We're left not knowing what sort of cancer he has, but knowing he is going to have some treatment. And I don't know whether it's relevant that it was during the process of having his not surgery, but his treatment for prostate that this was discovered. Do we therefore assume it's in a similar area?
Yes, and we just don't know. And Buckingham Palace being very clear, they don't want to share details about the type of cancer at this stage, what stage cancer it is, what the King's prognosis is at this point. But they do say he's receiving expert care, looks forward to returning to public duty as soon as possible. Why he's made this public? Well, I mean, he's the King. There is a public interest in this. But he has elected to make it public, we're told, once the schedule of treatment had begun, so that's today, noting that when he was Prince of Wales, he was patron of a number of cancer-related charities. He'd met families going through this. He'd spoken publicly in support of cancer patients and their loved ones. And I think that he wants to continue to be open to a certain point.
And obviously the public will be very alarmed. This reign of King Charles is only really getting going at the moment. We know that he says he feels like he had a lot to do. He had the longest apprenticeship to be monarch ever, 70-year apprenticeship in some ways. And now to be struck down with cancer so soon after his coronation, and really so soon after losing both parents.
Yes, I mean, what are we, 9 months, not even 9 months since the coronation. And he was often described, wasn't he, as being a king in a hurry because of that very long apprenticeship that you described, Daisy. He had a big plan. Actually, what we've seen from him is being someone as a king who has steadied the ship, aware of the public the unsettling nature of the loss of the Queen, the late Queen, and therefore he's come in and he hasn't rocked the boat in a way in which so many might have expected him to. A lot of talk about a slimmed-down monarchy. Well, I mean, gosh, aren't we seeing that right now? And I think that is the biggest concern. In terms of when we will see him back, we don't know. Our understanding is his case is not typical. His secondary diagnosis and treatment plan hasn't yet been confirmed. So we will get another update about that at a later point.
And let's just talk about that slimmed down monarchy, because people will be reassured that the statement has said he will be carrying out his constitutional duties. It's worth reminding people, if a monarch is incapacitated, either by being abroad or by being unwell or poorly, we do have these things called councillors of state, and there's been quite there's been a lot of movement of who is in and who's not a councillor of state. Just explain to us who they are, what do they do?
So there are very strict protocols in place for what happens in instances where a monarch is either abroad and can't carry out their constitutional duties, as you say, or is temporarily incapacitated. For example, if they went in for surgery and were under an anaesthetic. And those councillors of state are typically the 4 next in line. So, as well as the spouse. So Camilla, William, and then it would have been Andrew, Harry and Beatrice. That, of course, became problematic because Andrew and Harry rather are not working royals, nor is Princess Beatrice. And so it was decided to add further councillors of state onto the list. So Princess Anne and Prince Edward are on the list. And so I think we'll be seeing a lot more from Prince William, Princess Anne and Prince Edward, as well as Camilla.
Yes, certainly. Those 4 of them are going to have a lot more duties. And then people will be saying, will there be preparations for a regency, as in some sort of handover of constitutional, of the monarchy from Charles to William? And again, just explain to us how that works. And does a regency have to be permanent, or could the crown go to William temporarily and then back to Charles?
Well, I mean, at this stage, the palace very clear that that's not on the agenda. But yes, you're right. There are various different plans that can be put into place. And we know that they were discussed with the now king on several occasions, although he was reluctant to discuss them while his mother was still alive. You can have a regency. You can also have a temporary regency put in place. Now, this is the Regency Act 1937 to 1953, and it makes provision for the next in line to the throne to assume those duties should they be required on the monarch's behalf. It would also be brought in, for example, if a monarch was under 18. Not the case here, but there are those provisions in place. It doesn't have to be permanent. You can have a short-term regency should it be determined, but we're not there yet.
No. And actually, just mentioning the late Queen, in Robert Hardman's book, the book about King Charles that's just come out recently, in which I think he said that the Queen had been suffering for some time with blood cancer. Now, that, as far as I'm aware, hasn't been confirmed by Buckingham Palace or by the royal family. But if that was the case, she chose not to divulge that information. So this is a very different attitude and behaviour coming from Charles.
And actually, since this first broke, 10 days ago or so, 2 weeks ago, Daisy, it has been a very, very different approach. You're right. The late Queen maintained her privacy when it came to medical health matters. We got very, very limited information if she was ever having to go into hospital at all. The King made the decision to put out the details of his condition when he went into hospital. And you'll remember that statement came just 90 minutes after we'd had the statement from Kensington Palace that the Princess of Wales was in hospital having had abdominal surgery. He then walked out of hospital. He was visited by Camilla, his wife, on multiple occasions. That in itself unusual for a member of the royal family. They tended to not want to make a fuss, and the Queen or the late Duke of Edinburgh during his multiple hospital stays would have been there alone. But the Queen visiting once, at least twice a day throughout his 3-day stay. But now we are told he has a form of cancer, but that he does want to maintain some privacy, and so we don't know the full details of that. It is a very recent diagnosis.
Yes, and perhaps one of the reasons that Camilla was going in so much when he was in hospital was because the medical staff and the doctors and so on were in the process of breaking this news and telling him that they had discovered something.
That perhaps they discovered something of concern, it seems. They've obviously then had to do subsequent tests, perhaps biopsies taken during that procedure. Subsequent tests have been carried out, and now the results have been given to the King, and he's returned today to begin his treatment.